So hi, this is a very special podcast because we're taking the time out from our normal GSD sessions, which we do at the Livermore, to talk to a local nonprofit that is doing really cool stuff. And so today I have two folks that are involved in it with us, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves so that you guys can have a better, clearer idea of what's going on. So go ahead, Ian, tell us who you are.
Okay, my name's Ian Smith. I run a business called Surfs Up Adventures here in Pittsburgh. It's a stand-up paddleboarding outfitter. And last year we started a kind of a collaboration of nonprofits in the city called First Waves. And basically what First Waves does is it takes underserved youth on river surfing and stand-up paddleboarding adventures. And then we fuse that with the art of filmmaking, different technologies for filmmaking, and conservation. So we do river cleanups and help clean up the rivers and hope that through the experience, the kids and youth in Pittsburgh are going to have a better understanding of what goes on in the city's riverway and waterways, and hope that they care a little bit more about them.
And so with you today is Jamie, right? So Jamie, how are you related to sort of Ian's work and the bigger project as a whole?
I've been brought on for this season to help First Waves with their photography. I have a background in photography and film, and I'm coming on this season to help with that, and also with the social media and advertising, and to kind of splash into Pittsburgh and let everyone know that we're here and what we're doing.
So yeah, I mean, we were talking before we got started, and one of the things that kind of struck me is that this is a little bigger than what I first imagined. So I knew that you guys were coming in, working with kids and looking for ways to get kids engaged around ecosystems and the river and river life and that sort of stuff. But you have a big slew of partners. Like you have a whole big list of like important folks in the region that are collaborating on this. So how'd that all come about? Because that's always like herding cats, right?
Definitely is. And we do have an amazing group of partners. So this program first came about with the Sprout Fund. They were the people that kind of funded the pilot project in 2014. And we kind of had to stem out in Pittsburgh and find different partners that were going to add a lot of value to the project. So Pittsburgh Filmmakers was an obvious choice for teaching about filmmaking. So we reached out to Pittsburgh Filmmakers Youth Media Group, and they taught the kids how to do everything from framing good shots, how to do interviews with their peers, help them edit the films that they created in their interviews. So they were one of the first partners that we brought on. Secondly, we had Big Brothers Big Sisters of Greater Pittsburgh, and another amazing organization, and they were our participation coordinators. So if you want to talk about herding cats, they have the absolute most difficult job of getting all the kids there, making sure everyone's good to go on the days of the events. And then we also had Paddle Without Pollution, who was our conservation stewards. So they kind of structured the river cleanup, made sure that someone was going to be able to pick up all the trash that we cleaned up. I think we ended up getting over a ton of garbage on the cleanup day. So the kids were really excited about that. And they made that a super fun process. So they were an amazing partner. And then we also had Body Glove, really big kind of surfing company. And they provided shoes and hats for the kids, and that was really awesome. And then we have Uli Boards, who's our sponsors for boards. So
this is just epically large. So like, one of the things that's most interesting to kind of pull out of people as we talk is like, how'd you get to this solution, right? Like you were sitting there one day, paddling boards on the river, and then all of a sudden it occurred to you that you could organize all these sort of tangentially related things into one larger project. So tell me, how'd that process come about? Like, how did you go from like, hey, let's bring kids to the river and teach them to paddleboard, to like, let's create a process and a system that has outcomes?
Yeah, for sure. And that story could probably go back to when I was a tiny little kid, learning how to fly fish and kind of getting involved in rivers. But I guess we'll go back a few years when I started Surfs Up. My friend Rob and I used to run rivers and realized that there are standing waves in and around the city of Pittsburgh where you can actually get the same experience of surfing that you can get at the ocean. And when we figured that out, it was like...
So say that again, because I think the Tourism Board of Pittsburgh probably hasn't realized it yet. So how does that even mechanically work?
Yeah, it's a proprietary software that we have. No, I'm just kidding. But no, so in whitewater streams and creeks, which, the Laurel Highlands area and all around Pittsburgh, we have a lot of great whitewater creeks. and rivers. And though there are features in those rivers where it's called a hydraulic, and the water kind of goes over some gradient, hits either a rock or some other obstruction, and then it basically curls back on itself and creates a wave, just like in the ocean, only it doesn't go anywhere. It's basically the water colliding with something, and it's creating this nice face that you can surf, but you're standing in place. So it's a really cool experience to kind of see this entire river passing beneath you, but you're not going downstream with it. You're riding this wave.
Interesting. So this is something else that's happening in other parts of the country. I saw something in one of the tech blogs. I'm trying to remember where it was, but essentially there was a flood drainage channel that would occur. These would occur, right?
Yeah.
And like, there's even man-made ones, I assume. Like,
There are,
like
yes.
theme parks and stuff. Right?
Yeah, it's really big. Actually, it kind of is spawning, like all things probably do, from the West Coast. There's a lot of these whitewater parks
West
going
Coast.
up. Yeah, West Coast style. But yeah, so it kind of stems from that. There are two kind of whitewater parks that are man-made in Pennsylvania now that we've actually made, and there's a lot of natural ones that you can kind of go out and find your secret spots in the middle of these gorges and canyons, and find your own surf spots.
So how big is this wave? Is it like 3 feet high,
So
2 feet high?
It ranges. It's a great question. When we teach first waves, obviously we want it to be like a nicer small wave that's anywhere from like ankle high to knee high, we'll say, which is what you would kind of want to learn to surf in the ocean too.
I could drown in that.
Yeah, exactly. But and it goes anywhere, when we get catastrophic rains and flooding, you'll see, me and my friends will be heading out with boards, and the wave can just go from, being a little ankle biter to, up to your chest, a massive volume of water and a really big wave. So
Sounds like there's an element of danger and peril.
yeah, there can be. It's all manageable as long as you have the right safety gear, of course. That's the disclaimer. It can be very manageable, and obviously, your skill level should coincide with the level of water that's in the river.
So when was the last time that you actually went out and found one of these little secret waves?
Yeah, so you probably heard of McConnell's Mill, McConnell's Mill State Park. It's a little north of here. I was actually out yesterday. We got a nice little 50-degree day in January and was out running some rapids up there on our boards and found a couple little waves. So that was cool. And yeah, dodging some ice and some icebergs. So that makes for an exciting day.
So like your outfit, like, so you have like a standing paddleboard, and those are just specifically made for this kind of thing, or do you take like a wakeboard from that you might use?
No, so we do have specific boards. I mean, most stand-up paddleboards would work, but the problem is you're going to be hitting rocks when you're in the river. So we've always teamed up with a company called Uli Boards. They're out of California, and we've actually custom-shaped boards specifically for whitewater and specifically for rivers in this region. So we've got a board that Rob and I designed. It's called the Zedian. So that's one of my go-to boards. And then we've got a couple others just depending on the conditions. But and it's actually, it's made of kind of a hard shell PVC, and usually inflatable boards for the whitewater are what we use. You can use hard boards for bigger waves, but
Interesting.
yeah.
So is this a company too? That do you retail these boards for just generalists who want to get involved?
Yeah. Uli Boards is out of California, and Surf's Up Adventures is a dealer for those boards for sure.
And that's your company?
Yes.
And then your nonprofit is First Waves?
Yes.
And the nonprofit is really what we're here to talk about, is kind of how this experience enriches a kid's life, right? Like the justification is that you're exposing this young person to something they've never seen before. It's a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. And getting back to your question earlier, kind of how we figured out how to tie all these things together. When I started Surf's Up Adventures, I started doing programs with the DCNR. Emily Borks asked me to go do a camp for, their adventure camp for youth. And I went, and having no idea, I was kind of mortified because I'd never worked with kids before, and showed up, and I was like, oh, they're going to destroy my boards. They're going to hate me.
Yeah.
But it ended up being a phenomenal experience for both them and me, probably more for me than them anyway. But they had a blast on the boards, and I realized that we have a kind of a niche in getting their attention. Once you get them on the board, and I mean, some of these people, you joke around and tell them there's sharks in Pymatuming Lake, and they believe you wholeheartedly. They literally don't always know like what's going on in these ecosystems. So we realized that we could draw them with the power of surfing and use paddleboarding as a conduit to kind of bring them to a bigger picture, which is our waterways need attention from these conservation groups that exist. So I had met Paddle Without Pollution at, I think, the Banff Mountain Film Festival that Adventure Outdoors puts on every year in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And they told me that they use, self-powered crafts like canoes and kayaks to go clean up the rivers. And I was like, well, has anyone ever done a paddleboard and helped clean up with one of those? And they said no. So we took one down and started cleaning up the river down by the point. I think was the first one that I did with them. And I was just flabbergasted, with so much pollution in the rivers that they were cleaning up. And, I knew that was something that I wanted to help, kind of promote. So teamed up with Paddle Without Pollution to kind of put together these curriculums of watershed awareness. And then, I love films. Rob and I are always out filming the stupid stuff that we do essentially. And I always find a lot of power in that. So I thought it would be a great experience to give the kids something they could take away from this. They're going to learn how to use different technologies such as the GoPros. We tried to use some drones. It was a little too windy on the day of the cleanup, so we didn't get to use one this year, but next year we're definitely going to use one. And tie all that together and give them this educational experience that gets them excited outside. They're doing exercise. And they're going to be able to take away a cool video that hopefully will inspire the whole community.
So what's that day look like, right? Like, so you get 10 kids, 20 kids, 100 kids?
Yeah, we started with 10 kids. That was our pilot program.
So you bring 10 kids out to the middle of nowhere?
Essentially, yeah. So the river surfing day that we did with them, we did at the Greenhouse Park, Whitewater Park, which is just outside of Johnstown, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So these are city kids from Pittsburgh?
Yes, yeah. Big Brothers, Big Sisters. We sent out a kind of a feeler to see, who was interested in this kind of thing. And we did a little selection process and got a great group that was really, really fired up to go do some river surfing. And
boys and girls?
Yeah, boys and girls. And yeah, they came out and, kind of blank faces. Everyone was a little nervous, didn't know what to expect. And I was like, I got those jitters again. I was like, oh man, they're going to hate me. Is this going to bomb? And then, so we're teaching them about filmmaking and still kind of blank faces. And then give them some cameras and shoved, half of them into the water, and their faces just light up. They're loving it, feeling it. I don't even think I had to say 2 words, and one kid was already surfing on the wave, like super prodigy.
Yeah.
So it was super cool, and and then that's kind of when it comes to fruition that we've got something here with this program.
Yeah.
You can see it on their faces, and then even the team on shore that's kind of filming them and getting shots and interviewing them. They're just as stoked as the people coming off the water, and then they switch. So
you don't know this, but I taught in an urban district here in the city for 13 years, and so I know very well firsthand the practical value of experience, right? Like kids coming from depleted neighborhoods suffer most because they don't have opportunities to see other things. They don't have, probably the first time those kids saw deep woods was for some of them when you took them out there, and from your own life that you only get better and more sophisticated as you go out and you dabble in these different things. So anything that gets a kid out of their element, out of their comfort zone is going to have long-term value for them. It's an experience that's going to shape them, right? So you take these kids out once and you do this effort. What's the next step in the progression? Yeah,
so you do the river surfing trip, and then our the next thing on our agenda was kind of a 3-phase pilot project. So the next phase is actually taking them to the shores of the South Side on the Monongahela River. And so this is when Paddle Without Pollution kind of jumps in. Big Brothers Big Sisters gets everyone down there. South Side Riverfront Park, which you may have know about. And we kind of all get there, get all the gear ready. They're kind of suiting up with gloves, and they give them a great talk about, kind of where the pollution that they're going to find comes from. And one of the things is like you see all this trash on the river, and you assume that there's like boaters and they're just like throwing their stuff off the shore, but it's actually coming from the streets, washing through the sewer drains.
It's runoff.
It's runoff. It's coming from a variety of sources, and I think that's one thing that they kind of noted. It wasn't like, okay, there's just this stuff that's falling into the river. We're finding tires. We're finding shopping carts. I think the shopping cart was the most exciting thing. And shopping cart getting out of the middle of the Monongahela River on a paddleboard, not the easiest thing. We got one out, and then I think they found like 3 more, though. I was like, guys, we got to move on and get some more plastic, which is, Jamie can actually talk about, some of the plastics that we find and how we can, kind of also advocate against using single-use plastic, kind of teach them about those kinds of things.
So it's just this confluence, if I'll do a little river pun there, of different sort of, ethical lessons, right? Like it's about self-discovery, it's about ecology, it's about Big Brothers, Big Sisters mentorship. So I assume you had a slew of adults there as well, helping frame it?
Definitely. And we had, just a great amount of volunteers come out. I think for the Paddle Without Pollution cleanup, for instance, I think we had almost 50 volunteers adults and really people of all ages. They can get out and enjoy it. It kind of crosses generations, which is a cool thing about paddleboarding. I think in some of my trips, I've had people ages 7, and I've had, that next day I'll have a 78-year-old.
So tell me more about the paddleboard, I guess. So do you guys provide all the paddleboards?
Yeah, Surf's Up Adventures provides all the paddleboards, life jackets, all the safety equipment and everything you need for that.
So where do you run your business out of?
It's out of Sarver, if you're familiar with Sarver.
Not really. I've heard of it.
Yeah, a little north of Pittsburgh. We do a lot of our trips at Moraine State Park.
Okay.
Also on the Three Rivers, of course. We're all over. So.
And so that's kind of like folks would call you up and book an adventure sort of deal?
Yeah.
Is that the right word?
Yes, you can call it an adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that qualifies. And there's different levels. Like I said, we do everything from those hairy days of big water surfing and almost flood conditions to very, very calm, serene, tranquil lake experiences. We call them eco tours. So we take them in back marshes and kind of expose them to different wildlife, and it's really good for pretty much any physical level. You can do it. I've never had someone not be able to paddle. So yeah,
interesting. I have no idea that this was a thing, because we know that the rivers are starting to get those sorts of active lifestyle things, right? Like you see a lot of kayaking now that you didn't see when they were a little dirtier, and even 5 or 10 years ago.
Right.
So it seems like you guys are bringing a whole nother sort of thing to Pittsburgh rivers and streams and lakes that is new.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely.
How long have you guys been doing it?
Well, Surf's Up Adventures has been around since 2011, and I've been working with the DCNR and those camps since then. But First Waves just came to fruition in 2014. So yeah, the Sprout Fund through their Hive project kind of brought that to be, and the project went off great, and we're going to be expanding next year, hopefully having different chapters around the state, and just continue to get more kids involved. So
cool. So what's the goal? Like, what's the end game? In 5 years, you're going to have 1,000 kids and 10.
That would be awesome. That's that might be a lofty number, 1,000, but hey, you said it. Let's aim for it.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
And your partners are Big Brothers Big Sisters. It's Sprout Fund. It's who else?
Yeah, we have the Pittsburgh Filmmakers Youth Media Group, and they were a great partner. We've got Body Glove, like I said earlier, and our partners are kind of ever expanding. We're not boxed into any one different thing. There's, like you said earlier, there's so many aspects of life in the city and even outside the city that can kind of be brought into this. So we look for partnerships with a number of different people. We can offer different things like the surfing, the whitewater, but also the flat water for people that aren't into that much of an adventure, So yeah, it's open. I call it a creative collaboration of nonprofits and volunteers, photographers.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's really cool. Get to meet awesome people.
It is really fun to teach Pittsburghers about stand-up paddleboarding and to bring what you were saying, like, I didn't even know this existed. I didn't even know this was happening. It's really fun to share that and to teach new people and bring them into the fold, and so yeah, there's room for growth, definitely.
And your role in this is to help take this content, because your background is in marketing and in production and video and film, right?
Right.
And to take this content and publish it in a way that tells this story, right?
Yes, I mean, I'm definitely going to be on board this season to help with the filming and the photography, because I've done a little bit of surf photography. I have a degree in film from Pitt. I actually took classes from Pittsburgh filmmakers when I was going to college, so it's all very familiar.
It's all full circle.
And I also worked for Surfrider, which is a pretty popular national nonprofit that's about keeping the ocean and beaches clean and advocating not to use single-use plastics and things like that. So that kind of background has brought me here and helped me find First Waves and Ian. So I'm pretty excited to be on board for this season.
So the summer of 2014, you guys got all this video content. Is it going to be published somewhere?
Yes, the kids have been editing it at Pittsburgh Filmmakers. They've got the film together, and we're having a premiere next week, February 20th, at Big Brothers Big Sisters offices in East Liberty. So
How would somebody come to that?
it is free, and it's open to everyone to come. So it's at 7 o'clock next Friday, February 20th. We're all over Facebook. It's on our blog and our website. So
So
yeah,
if
it's
somebody
free for
Googled
everyone.
First Wave Pittsburgh, you guys would come up and we'd be able to find out more details. Right?
Yeah, we hope so. There's firstwaves.
That's kind of my job, huh?
Firstways.org is our website, and you can go on there. But we have we're asking people to RSVP on our Facebook event page. So shouldn't have any trouble.
Head count, right?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So what's the takeaway for each of you, sort of on a personal level? Like, what's the personal reward that you get out of this? I mean, Ian's talked a little bit about it, but like, I really want to kind of narrow it down, and because you are doing so much social good in all these different channels, I wonder what individually is motivating each of you.
Well, I'm sure my motivation is like I said, teaching people and just sharing such a new experience. Because I remember when I first learned about surfing and stand-up paddleboarding, how excited I was and how it felt like a whole new world. And I can only imagine that for a kid, and let alone an inner city kid or someone who's involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters that has limited exposure to things like this, and to be able to bring that to them, I think is really exciting for me personally. And I am a big advocate for just clean water in general, and not using single-use plastics, and just making people more aware of their daily choices and how they kind of they build up over time. And if we all just make this little tiny difference in our actions, that it will add up to something. And it's nice to be able to see it all come together in one place and one event too.
So has Ian taken you out to McConnell's Mills during flood stage and let you surf the big standing wave?
I haven't yet, but I still have my wetsuit, so I'm ready.
Nice.
And so Ian, like, what's the big takeaway, man?
Yeah, so I mean, it's tough to narrow it down to just one thing. Like you said, there's so many different aspects to this. If I had to narrow it down to one thing, I mean, I think that a lot of people in Pittsburgh are really coming around to the fact that conservation is a big thing that we need to be focused on. What I think we're missing is taking that off at the knees, cutting it off at the knees. We need the youth to really care about this, so that as they kind of grow up, they're going to be the influencers. They're going to be the people in charge of these organizations. And if they don't care about the waterways, then it's not going to get any better. So if we can inspire them, I think we can inspire the rest of the community and really make a kind of a lasting change. It's not going to be right away, but if they start to care about these things at a young age, it's just going to perpetuate. So I think it's a great approach to conservation that's relatively new, and I'm excited to bring that and to Pittsburgh, and so many different organizations kind of have an arm in it. So.
That's awesome. What's the thing that you need now? So how can people listening get involved and help?
Yeah, I guess, at firstways.org, we've got a couple pages that have ways that people can get involved. They can come out to the film premiere and show their support that way. It's totally free. Keep an eye out for other events that we do. We're obviously going to be having surfing events where the general public can come out and kind of see what we do. We're hoping that anyone that would be interested in partnering with this, whether it be a corporate sponsorship or anything like that might be interested in kind of reaching out and getting involved, would contact us any way that they can. And we'll continue to forge ahead and just build the relationships as we go.
Jamie, is there a fundraising campaign?
Not currently, but everyone should follow us on all of our social media so that they can be aware when that happens, and that they can come out on our next cleanup.
Yeah, that'd be cool, right? Like getting the neighborhood to crowdsource some cleanup. And that's really kind of what you're doing, right? Like you're tricking kids into having fun and cleaning up the rivers.
Yeah, I mean, those are your words, not mine. I don't know if we have to trick people, trust us. There's surfing out here. Yeah.
This is
that's what we do.
Come into the woods.
But I mean, and partners like Paddle Without Pollution, they do have great ways that you can reach out, and they invite everyone to come be a part of their cleanups. And it's cool because they usually give a prize for like the most stuff cleaned up and the most interesting thing. And I think on one of their cleanups, somebody found an alligator or crocodile or something.
I'd be very scared of what you might find.
Yeah, you find some interesting stuff. And so that's another way that they can get involved. But all of our partners have cool stuff going on. So I encourage you to go check out, anything that they're doing. And we're going to be kind of a neutral spot where we're going to post all that and the stuff that we're doing with them. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, we're a good aggregate of all of those partners together. So.
Cool. Well, awesome stuff, right? And congratulations on being a doer, right? So many people in town are talkers, and you guys, I didn't hear any of the talking, and I just learned about you after you've already done, and that's commendable because it takes a lot to organize these sorts of things and make them and find those partnerships that are going to result in outcomes. And it sounds like you did that.
Cool. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So great work. And we'll post this in the next week or probably sooner because you guys need it for the event, right? So I'll get this up tomorrow, I think.
That sounds
Awesome.
even better.
Awesome. Yeah, this is a great studio. Really, really excited to be here.